We have all received a dreaded phone call. Hard news. A diagnosis, a job gone, a relationship over. And the people around you respond with the best they have. Just stay positive. Everything happens for a reason. It'll all work out. I just know it will. And they mean well. And every single one of those phrases comes from people who love us and want the pain to stop. But what we are offering each other and what we are receiving is not hope. It is optimism. And those are not the same thing. Biblical hope is not optimism. It is the confidence that God will defeat evil and restore shalom. Optimism is a personality trait. Some people just naturally trend toward the upside. They assume things will probably work out. And that can be a genuine spiritual gift. But optimism is not a spiritual virtue. And it is not the same as hope, not the same as faith. Because optimism is fragile. It depends on circumstances trending in the right direction. When the diagnosis is terminal, optimism goes quiet. When the marriage actually ends, optimism doesn't know what to say. When the crisis does not resolve, optimism collapses because it had nothing underneath it. Just a general feeling that things would probably be okay. And when optimism collapses, a lot of people think their faith collapsed with it. Because we built our spiritual lives on optimism and called it hope. And that's a problem. American Christianity has spent decades producing a version of faith that is almost entirely circumstance dependent. When life is good, God is good. When life is hard, we start asking hard questions about God's presence. We build worship services around the feelings that God is here and so things are fine. And when things are not fine, and that seems pretty often, maybe even normal. When things are not fine, when our feelings aren't right, the whole structure wobbles. And that is not the faith we see in Scripture. That is not the hope the poets of Israel sang. Biblical hope is not optimism. It is confidence that God will defeat evil and restore shalom. We've talked about how poetry slows us down to see truly, and feel rightly, and respond faithfully. Last week we followed that slowing into lament and imprecation. How grief and anger can be brought to God honestly. How the Psalms give us language for pain and let us leave the judgment to Him. Both of those end in trust in God. But why do we trust? What do we do when the lament is still open, when the crisis is not resolved, when evil is still winning, when we are still waiting? What is our hope built on? What does hope look like inside a hospital room, a courtroom, a battlefield, a school or office with the constant, unrelenting pressure? The answer is not, think positive thoughts. It's not, well, just pretend or suppress the pain until it finally breaks you. Hebrew poetry has another way, and it is harder in the moment, yet truer than any of those options. The answer is to have deep roots, understand who God is, His faithfulness, especially in keeping His promises. We have to spend time, especially when times are good, to grow our roots towards the Father. And poetry slows us down so we can place our hope in God's future without denying the present. Hope is where it gets tested. Seeing truly means not looking away from the ruins. Feeling rightly means letting hope do something and be something other than a mood. And responding faithfully means acting from confidence in who God is, even when circumstances say otherwise. Psalm 46 is one of the most traveled psalms in church history. Martin Luther wrote, "A mighty fortress is our God," as a paraphrase of it in 1529, during a period of intense personal illness and political threat against the Reformation. The psalm became the anthem of a persecuted movement. It has been translated and reprinted and sung in languages Luther never spoke, by people in circumstances Luther never faced. Chinese house churches, Soviet labor camps, African prisons, cancer wards, broken marriages, grief that had no visible bottom. Why does this psalm reach so far and last for so long? Because it does not pretend everything is okay. It focuses on the one who will make everything okay. Starting in verse 1, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth gives way, though the mountains be moved into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains tremble at its swelling. Selah. The poet is not describing a minor setback. Mountains collapsing into the sea and waters roaring and foaming, the earth giving way. This is not a metaphor for a stressful week at work. This is cosmic catastrophe language. The structures that define stability, land, mountain, sea, are coming apart at the seams. My life is falling apart. The places where I might find my stability and my health or my hope or my relationships are failing. Now remember, Hebrew poetry works in contrast: devastation and restoration, exile and return, war and peace. This poem opens inside the catastrophe, and it does not skip right away to the good part. But the poet says, in the midst of the catastrophe, we will not fear. That is not fake cheerfulness or optimism. That is not denial. That is a specific claim made under specific circumstances. The earth is giving away, and we will not fear. Not because the situation is improved, because of who God is, a very present help in trouble. Present, not distant, not scheduled, not coming eventually, present in the trouble. Continuing on in verse 4, there is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy habitation of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God will help her when morning dawns. Did you notice the water metaphor again? Did you remember how it runs from Genesis to Revelation, how it carries the weight of life and presence and source? If those thoughts activated for you, great job. You are reading poetry better. And if it didn't, that's okay. It will come as you continue to meditate on it. This river that makes the city of God glad is not just hydration. It is the ongoing presence of God who cannot run dry, who provides life to our roots. And in verse 6, we see the contrast between that and the nations. The catastrophe come in. The nations rage. The kingdoms totter. He utters his voice. The earth melts. Yahweh of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Selah. Despite the power of the nations, they fall before God. This is God as warrior king. This is the dominant metaphor in this song. God is not just a shepherd. He's not just a father. He is a warrior king. The Lord of hosts, Yahweh Sabaoth, the God of armies. His voice alone dismantles what the nations spent centuries building, what looked so stable. Selah. We're not sure what that word means. Everyone agrees it was likely a direction to the congregation, like when saying rise or during the Lord's Supper, take and eat. And it highlights that these psalms were sung and said corporately in a group as they focused on these things together. The word probably means something like pause. The music stops. The congregation sits in silence. The poet is not being poetic at this point. He's issuing an instruction. Stop. Sit in this. Let it work on you. Together, let's meditate on the kingdoms shaking. The mighty warrior king has spoken. Biblical hope is not optimism. It is confidence that God will defeat evil and restore shalom. Continuing in verse 8, come behold the works of Yahweh, how he has brought desolations on the earth. He makes wars to cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the chariots with fire. This is not mediation. This is not a negotiated settlement. This is a warrior king who wins. And then, right in the middle of that, God winning the battle so fully the enemy can never fight again, we come to verse 10, be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. Be still. We usually will pull that line out and put it on a coffee mug or a candle or a throw pillow, and I understand the impulse. It's beautiful. Be still and know that I am God. But when we strip it out of context and turn it into a self-care slogan, we lose the context of the battlefield, the crisis. The context is a warrior king who just ended war forever. And he turns to his people and says, stop scrambling. Stop managing this with your own strength. Stop reaching for your own weapons. I have it. Know who I am. And that is not an invitation to relax. That is an invitation to reorient. Stop doing the things you keep doing, the anxious self-management, the white-knuckled control, the exhausting performance of being okay. Just stillness here is not a posture, it's a surrender. Let the mighty warrior king be the mighty warrior king. And in verse 11, we read again, Yahweh of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Selah. For the third time now, the psalm opened with verse 1 and repeated it in verse 7, and here it is again. Our fortress, our rock. That is the anchor phrase of this poem. Hebrew poetry uses repetition the way we use bold types and underlines, with purpose, not accidental. Say it again. Drive it in. You need this in your bones before you need it in your circumstances. The Lord of hosts, the God of mighty armies, is with us. He is our fortress. Not the Lord of hosts might show up, or the Lord of hosts was with us before when things got hard. He's with us now, in the middle of the earth giving way, in the middle of the situation where I am powerless. That is the first move of biblical hope. It does not explain the chaos. It does not rush to resolve it. It names who is present inside it and where the power and authority lay. It is the third movement of lament and imprecation expanded. Complaint, petition, trust. Trust with hope. Biblical hope is not optimism. It is confidence that God will defeat evil and restore shalom. Now, Psalm 46 tells us who God is in a crisis. Isaiah 52 tells us what God is coming to do about it. This is hope projected forward, not away from the present to a distant promise, but through the difficulty, the hardship, and the heartbreak that we can see the hope right now. Isaiah 40 through 55 is written about Israel in Babylonian exile. The city of Jerusalem is destroyed. The temple is in rubble. The king is gone. The land is occupied. The people are enslaved in a foreign country, singing or trying to sing the songs of Zion on foreign soil. Psalm 137 captures the devastation by the waters of Babylon. There we sat down and wept when we remembered Zion. This is more than just, it's not a good season for me. This is the people of God looking at all the visible evidence and wondering if God is done. If the project failed, if God lost, and into that devastation, Isaiah speaks in chapter 52, verse 7, how beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of him who brings good news, who publishes peace, who brings good news of happiness, who publishes salvation, who says to Zion, your God reigns. The voice of your watchmen. They lift up their voice. Together they sing for joy. For eye to eye they see the return of Yahweh to Zion. Break forth into singing, you waste places of Jerusalem. For Yahweh has comforted his people. He has redeemed Jerusalem. How beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of him who brings good news. Picture that. Hold that image. Mountains. Ancient communication moved by line of sight. A watchman posted on the city hill or a communication tower on a mountain could see a messenger coming from a distance. And before any words could be heard, before any content could reach them, they could read the news often from how the messenger moved. If the battle was lost, the messenger moved with weight. Slow, defeated, you could see it from the wall. If the battle was won, the messenger ran differently. The watchmen see the messenger coming across the mountains, running with his head up, and they erupt, they sing. Not because the city is rebuilt yet, not because the exiles are home, not because anything visible in their immediate circumstances has changed, but because they can see the messenger running. And the news is, your God reigns. Your God reigns. That is the declaration that the mighty warrior king has won. This is the same God of Psalm 46, the Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord of armies. He has acted. His reign was never in question, but now it is proclaimed publicly, visibly, before the nations. Back to Isaiah verse 10, the Lord has bared his holy arm before the eyes of all the nations, and all the ends of the earth shall see the salvation of our God. In ancient warfare, you pulled back your robe to free your sword arm. You bared your arm when you were done negotiating and ready to fight. And Isaiah says God has bared his arm. He has entered the battle, and all the ends of the earth, not just Israel, not just the watchers on the wall, not just the immediate enemy, all the ends of the earth will see it. This is meant to be more than just a personal comfort. This is a cosmic announcement. Biblical hope is not optimism. It is confidence that God will defeat evil and restore shalom. The New Testament writers heard this passage in Isaiah and understood exactly what it pointed at. Paul quotes verse 7 in Romans 10:15 in his argument about the gospel going to all nations. The feet bringing good news become the feet of anyone who carries the proclamation that Jesus is Lord. The announcement, your God reigns, becomes the proclamation of the risen Christ, the mighty warrior king who bared his arm against sin and death, our ultimate captors and enemies, the ultimate exile, and Jesus won. The cross is God entering the battle. The resurrection is God winning it. The church is the herald running. Good news, good news. The mighty warrior king has won. This is the good news we bear in a broken world. This is why we want to tell the story of Jesus. It is a reminder that we need to bring the good news of the gospel that Jesus won. Death has been defeated. The world doesn't have to live like this anymore. Your feet are beautiful. Your joy should shine from your face because of your hope, your sure foundation that Jesus rose from the grave in victory and shares that victory with you. Isaiah was writing before the exile ends. He writes a future that has not happened yet to people sitting in ruins, and he calls them to sing, not to perform happiness, not to deny the ruins, to sing because they know who wins. They do not have the outcome yet. They do not see the restored city yet. The exile is still happening, and Isaiah says, break forth into singing. The waste places of Jerusalem, the rubble, the broken walls, the empty temple mount, but still break forth into singing because Yahweh has comforted his people. He has redeemed Jerusalem. The mighty warrior king has bared his arm. Poetry can ask that of us, can encourage that in us. And it's not a denial of circumstances. It's not a naive ignoring it. In fact, I would say it's the hardest thing in the world. Harder than optimism, harder than despair, to sing in the ruins because we know who wins. It's harder to see truly and feel rightly and respond faithfully. It's so hard that we've actually softened the word hope. Often we use it more like wish. I wish things will get better. I mean, I have no reason to think they will, but wouldn't it be nice? That is not biblical hope. Biblical hope sees the ruins truly. It names the exile for what it is. It feels the weight of not yet shalom, and then it sings faithfully, not as performance, not as pretense, but as declaration that our God of hosts reigns. The resurrection makes the outcome certain. Biblical hope is not confidence. It is not optimism. It is confidence that God will defeat evil and restore shalom. I keep saying shalom, but I haven't defined it yet. But you've probably got a sense of it. I mean, we translate the word shalom normally as peace in our Bibles, and that is not wrong. But our English peace is too small. English peace usually means the absence of conflict, whether between relationships or nations. There's no noise, there's no war, a quiet, a ceasefire at best. But shalom is everything in its right place. Every relationship healed, every broken thing repaired, every injustice resolved, every exile returned, every wound closed, the full restoration of right order, the way things were meant to be before everything came apart. It is the presence of wholeness. It's similar to mishpat, everything in its right place, but expanded with everything in its right relationship. You can't have one without the other. We feel the opposite of shalom before we often have words for it. The sense that something's wrong. This is not how it should be. That gap between what is and what should be is often enormous, and that feeling, that grinding awareness is not pessimism. It is the image of God in us recognizing shalom breakage. Sin does not only produce guilt, it produces fragmentation. It scatters what was gathered. It breaks what was whole. The exile is shalom broken. The ruins of Jerusalem are shalom broken. The cancer diagnosis is shalom broken. The failed marriage, the addiction, the estrangement, the injustice that goes unanswered, shalom broken. And shalom is the word for what God is moving toward. In Psalm 46, he shatters the spear. He makes wars cease. He burns the weapons. That is not just the removal of bad things. That is the beginning of shalom, of right order being restored. The warrior king does not negotiate a reduction in violence. He ends it. War no more. In Isaiah 52, the herald publishes peace. That's that Hebrew shalom. The good news is not things are improving. The good news is shalom is coming. Not the peace of exhausted resignation. Not the peace of, I guess this is just how it is now and I have to accept it. The shalom of a warrior king who has won and is now reordering everything. Every exile home, every broken relationship restored, every nation seeing the salvation of our God. That is what biblical hope is pointed at. Biblical hope is not optimism. It is confidence that God will defeat evil and restore shalom. Not just a good outcome or circumstances improving. Shalom. The full restoration of all things and the confidence to live now in the ruins, in the exile, in the waiting room, on the basis of that coming help. And we help bring it about. Jeremiah 29 says, "Seek the shalom of the city where I have sent you into exile and pray to Yahweh on its behalf, for in its shalom you will find your shalom." This is what Jesus is talking about when he says, love your enemies, do good to those who hurt you. They are broken. They need shalom just like you do. Not our bitterness, not our hate or our rage. We want to bring our grief and our anger, our lamentation, our imprecation to God so we can bring shalom to our enemies. This is why persecuted Christians have repeatedly turned to the Psalms, not because their circumstances improved when they sang. They often didn't. Sometimes they sang on the way to prison or they sang inside it. They turned to the Psalms because the Psalms gave them language for where they actually were. Inside the chaos, feeling the weight of broken shalom. And it gives them language for where God is taking them, to shalom promised, to a warrior king certain, to Yahweh Sabaoth being with us in the moment of hurt. Biblical hope is not optimism. It is confidence that God will defeat evil and restore shalom. All of us are in a waiting room. Different rooms, different kinds of waiting. Some of us are waiting for a health answer. Some are waiting for a relationship to heal, or waiting for a financial situation to stabilize, or waiting on justice that has not come. Some of us are not sure what we're waiting for. We just know we're not there yet. Something is still broken. Shalom is not here yet. The rebelling world offers two different ways to handle that. The first is optimism. often to the point of toxic positivity. Refuse to look at the ruins. Just keep your chin up. Reframe the exile as an adventure. I mean, people can't really cope with struggle, so let's call it something else. Let's just keep posting the encouraging quotes. Let's just perform okayness until something changes. That's not hope. That is a coping strategy that collapses when the weight gets too heavy for us. The second way is quiet hopelessness. Look at the ruins, absorb them, and conclude that Shalom's not coming. Just manage your expectations. Don't want too much. This is just how things are. That's not realism. That's surrender. And it is not what the warrior king asks of us. Poetry trains us to refuse both. Psalm 46 does not deny the earthquake. It stands in the earthquake and declares, the Lord of armies is with us. Isaiah 52 does not pretend the exile is over. It stands in the ruins and breaks forth into singing because the herald is running. Shalom is coming. Hebrew poetry holds the present and the future together without letting either one cancel the other. Hope is secure because of the cross and resurrection. Biblical hope is not optimism. It is confidence that God will defeat evil and restore shalom. To see truly, to feel rightly, to respond faithfully. Seeing truly means looking at the ruins without flinching. Feeling rightly means letting grief be grief and letting hope be something stronger than optimism. Responding faithfully means acting from confidence in who God is before the circumstances resolve. Let the language of the poet become your language. Let the song written in exile become your song in your waiting room. Hebrew poetry was designed for this, to train hope in people who are not home yet, who are still in the battle, to give us the herald's message before we see the victory. Because that's exactly where we stand today as we wait for the return of our warrior king. Remembering that biblical hope is not optimism. It is confidence that God will defeat evil and restore shalom.